I never thought my life would change so drastically on the day. Our library was set to close its doors forever there. I was Julia Thompson, head librarian of the Indianapolis Central Library, surrounded by the musty smell of old books and the somber atmosphere of impending unemployment. My brunette hair was pulled back in its usual tight bun, and I adjusted my glasses, trying to maintain some semblance of control as I organized the final closing sale. "Jules, where do you want these art books?" asked my assistant, breaking my concentration. "Just put them on that table over there," I replied, waving vaguely towards a cluttered corner. As I turned back to my task, the library doors swung open, and in walked a whirlwind of color and energy that would turn my world upside down. She was striking black hair with a vibrant blue streak, piercing blue eyes that seemed to take in everything at once, and arms covered in intricate tattoos. As she approached the front desk, I couldn't help but notice the way she moved, like a dancer, or perhaps her boxer, full of contained power and grace. "Hi there," she said, flashing a smile that made my heart skip a beat. "I heard you guys were closing down. Thought I'd bring in some art books to donate before it's too late." I blinked momentarily, at a loss for words. "That's very kind of you, miss." "Maya," she supplied, extending a paint-stained hand. "Maya Rivera," as I shook her hand. I felt a jolt of something. It wasn't quite the cliche spark people talk about, but more like a warm current spreading up my arm and settling somewhere in my chest. "Julia Thompson," I managed to say, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. "I'm the head librarian," or well, I was. Maya's eyes softened with sympathy. "Man, that's rough. How long have you worked here? 15 years? I replied, surprised by the lump forming in my throat. "It's been my whole life." She let out a low whistle. "I'm sorry, that's gotta be tough." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Maya glanced around the nearly empty library, then back at me. "Listen, I know this might sound crazy, but do you want to grab a coffee? You look like you could use a break, and I'd love to hear more about this place." Part of me wanted to refuse. I had work to do after all, but something in Maya's eyes, a mixture of kindness and mischief, made me pause. When was the last time I'd done anything spontaneous? "You know what? I'd like that," I heard myself say as we walked to the nearby cafe. I found myself opening up to this vibrant stranger. I told her about my recent divorce, how the library had been my sanctuary, and how lost I felt now that it was closing. Maya listened intently, her blue eyes never leaving my face. "Sometimes endings are just new beginnings in disguise," she said softly. "Maybe this is your chance to discover a new passion." I laughed a bit bitterly at my age. "I'm not sure I even know who I am anymore without this job." She reached across the table, her fingers brushing mine. "Then maybe it's time to find out." That touch, brief as it was, sent a shiver through me. I pulled my hand back, confused by my own reaction. Maya didn't seem to notice, launching into a story about her latest art project, a series of murals celebrating the city's hidden gems. As she spoke, her passion was infused. I found myself leaning in, captivated by her words and the way her eyes lit up for the first time in months. I felt a spark of excitement about the future. "You should come to the farewell party tonight," I blurted out, surprising myself. "We're having one last hera before we lock the doors for good." Maya's smile was radiant. "I'd love to. It's a date." The word date hung in the air between us, laden with possibilities I wasn't quite ready to examine, but as we said goodbye and I watched her walk away, I couldn't deny the flutter in my stomach, or the way my eyes lingered on her retreating form. That night, as I got ready for the party, I found myself paying more attention to my appearance than I had in years. I let my hair down, applied a touch of makeup, and chose a dress that had been gathering dust in my closet when I arrived at the library. The atmosphere was bittersweet. Colleagues and longtime patrons mingled, sharing memories and saying goodbyes. But my eyes kept darting to the door, waiting for a flash of blue hair, and then there she was. Maya entered the room like a breath of fresh air, her presence immediately lifting the somber mood. As our eyes met across the crowded room, I felt that Same warmth from earlier spreading through my chest. Little did I know this was just the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything. I thought I knew about my self-love and the boundless possibilities of new beginnings, the libraries. Farewell party was in full swing, a bittersweet seal-ation of endings and new beginnings I found myself gravitating towards. May, drawn to her vibrant energy like a moth to a flame, she was regaling a group of my now former colleagues with tales of her latest art installation, her hands moving animatedly as she spoke. Julia, she exclaimed when she saw me, her face lighting up. You look wow, just wow. I felt a blush creep up my neck, unused to such open admiration. Thanks, I mumbled, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. You clean up pretty well yourself, Maya grinned, taking my hand and pulling me towards the refreshment table. Come on, let's get you a drink. You look like you could use one. As the night wore on, I found myself relaxing more than I had in years. Maya had a way of putting everyone at ease, her laughter infectious. We danced to cheesy 80 seconds hit shared stories about our favorite books and somehow ended up sitting on the floor in the children's section surrounded by colorful picture books. You know, Maya said, her voice soft in the quiet library. I used to come here all the time as a kid. It was my escape from, well, everything. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw vulnerability beneath her confident exterior. What were you escaping from? She shrugged, picking at the carpet. Oh, you know, shitty parents, small-minded. Town being the weird gay kid who liked to draw on walls. My heart ached for the young Maya she was describing. Without thinking, I reached out and squeezed her hand. Well, I'm glad you found solace here. She looked up at me, her blue eyes intense. Yeah, me too. And I'm glad I found you here too. The air between us suddenly felt charged. I was acutely aware of how close we were sitting, of the warmth of her hand in mine. For a moment, I thought she might kiss me. Part of me wanted her to, but then someone called my name, breaking the spell as the party wound down. Maya insisted on walking me home. The night air was crisp, hinting at the approaching winter. We walked in comfortable silence, our shoulders occasionally brushing. So what's next for Julia Thompson? Maya asked as we neared my apartment. I sighed, the reality of my situation hitting me anew. I honestly have no idea. For the first time in my adult life, I don't have a plan. Maya bumped her shoulder against mine. Playfully, that's not necessarily a bad thing, you know. Sometimes the best adventures start without a map. I snorted, says the free-spirited artist. Some of us need a little more structure. Maybe, she conceded, or maybe you just need someone to show you how fun a little chaos can be. She paused, then added, hey, why don't you come see my studio tomorrow? I could use a fresh pair of eyes on my latest project. I hesitated. The responsible part of me said I should be job hunting, updating my resume. But the part of me that had been awakened by Maya's presence was curious, eager, even okay. I heard myself say, why not? The next day, I found myself in a part of town I'd never ventured into. Before Maya's studio was in an old warehouse, the brick walls covered in vibrant murals. Inside the space was a riot of color and texture, canvases and spray cans scattered everywhere. Welcome to my chaos, Maya said, spreading her arms wide. I wandered around, taking in the half-finished paintings and sketches. Her talent was undeniable, her style a mix of street art edge and classical techniques. Maya, these are incredible. I breathed. She came up behind me close enough that I could feel the heat of her body. Thanks, she said softly, but I want to show you something special. She led me to a canvas covered with a sheet with a flourish. She pulled it away, revealing a stunning mural design. It depicted a library, but not like any I'd seen before. Books flew from the shelves, their pages transforming into birds, butterflies, and fantastical creatures. And in the center bar L, noticeable at first glance, was a figure that looked remarkably like me, arms outstretched, as if embracing the magic around her. Maya, I whispered, my throat tight with emotion. Is that you? She finished. Yeah. I hope you don't mind. I couldn't get you out of my head after we met. This is how I see you, Julia, full of untapped magic and possibility. I turned to her, overwhelmed. She was looking at me with such intensity such open that it took my breath away before I could second guess myself. I leaned in and pressed my lips to hers. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, but then Maya's arms wrapped around me, pulling me closer, and the world fell away all I could focus on was the softness of her lips, the warmth of her body against mine, the faint smell of paint, and something uniquely her when we finally pulled apart, both breathless. I felt like my whole world had shifted on its axis. Maya rested her forehead against mine, a soft smile playing on her lips. "Wow," she murmured. "I've been wanting to do that since the moment I saw you." I laughed a bit shakily. "I think I have too, I just didn't know it until now," as we stood there wrapped in each other's arms, surrounded by art and possibilities. I felt a sense of excitement I hadn't experienced in years for the first time since the library closed. I wasn't afraid of the future with Maya by my side. I was ready to embrace the unknown and see where this new chapter of my life would lead. The days following that kiss in Maya's studio were a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. On one hand, I felt more alive than I had in years, my body humming with a newfound energy every time I thought of Maya. On the other, I was grappling with a lifetime of expectations and assumptions about myself that were suddenly being called into question. I found myself pacing my apartment, my mind racing. Was I gay, bisexual? Was this just a phase brought on by the stress of losing my job and my recent divorce? The Julia Thompson I thought I knew wouldn't have kissed a woman, wouldn't have felt this electric charge every time she thought about doing it again. After 3 days of internal debate, I finally worked up the courage to call Maya. Her voice on the other end of the line was warm, tinged with a hint of concern. "Hey, stranger. I was starting to think you'd changed your number." I winced, guilt washing over me. "I'm sorry, Maya. I needed some time to think." There was a pause, and I could almost see her nodding on the other end. "I get it. This is all new for you, isn't it? Is it that obvious?" I asked, letting out a shaky laugh. "Letting just say I've been where you are." She replied gently, "Listen, why don't we meet up now? Pressure, just two people talking. How about that little cafe where we first had coffee an hour later?" I found myself sitting across from Maya, a steaming latte between my hands. She looked as beautiful as ever. Her blue streak freshly dyed her eyes soft with understanding. "So," she said, leaning back in her chair, "want to talk about it?" I took a deep breath, trying to organize my thoughts. "I'm confused, Maya. I've never felt this way about a woman before. Hell, I've never felt this strongly about anyone before. It's terrifying." Maya reached across the table, her fingers brushing mine. This time, I didn't pull away. "It's okay to be scared, Julie. Discovering new parts of yourself can be overwhelming, but it can also be beautiful." I nodded, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes. I don't know who I am anymore without the library, without my marriage, and now this. It's like everything I thought I knew about myself is changing. Or maybe Maya suggested gently, "You're just finally letting yourself be who you've always been underneath." Her words hit me like a thunderbolt. I thought back to all the times I'd felt the flicker of something when looking at a beautiful woman, all the crushes on female teachers and friends that I dismissed as admiration. Had I always known deep down? I think I said slowly, "I'd like to figure it out with you if you're willing to be patient with me." Ma's smile was radiant. I'd like nothing more from that day on Maya, and I began a dance of sorts. We took things slow, spending time together without the pressure of defining our relationship. She showed me her world, underground art galleries late night poetry slams in hidden corners of the city I'd never known existed. One evening, about 2 weeks after our cafe conversation, Maya took me to a small, intimate restaurant tucked away in a quiet neighborhood. The Cove's lighting was soft, the music low, and as we sat across from each other, I felt a familiar warmth spreading through my chest. "Is this a date?" I asked, surprised by my own boldness. Maya's eyes twinkled. "Do you want it to be?" I considered for a moment, then nodded yes. "I think I do." Her smile was worth every moment of uncertainty I'd felt as we talked and laughed over dinner. Felt myself relaxing into this new reality when Maya reached across the table to take my hand. I didn't hesitate to intertwine our fingers after dinner. We walked through a nearby park, the autumn leaves crunching beneath our feet. Maya stopped suddenly, turning to face me. Julia, she said, her voice soft but serious. I really like you, and I want you to know that I'm willing to go at whatever pace you're comfortable with. There's no rush. I looked at her, taking in the sincerity in her eyes, the gentle curve of her lips, and in that moment, all my doubts and fears seemed to melt away. I stepped closer, cupping her face in my hands. Maya, I whispered, I'm tired of being afraid. I want this. I want you. This time when our lips met there was no hesitation. The kiss was deep, passionate, filled with all the emotions we'd been holding back. Maya's arms wrapped around me, pulling me close, and I lost myself in the sensation when we finally broke apart, both breathless. Maya rested her forehead against mine. Wow, she murmured. Yeah, I agreed, unable to keep the smile off my face as we walked hand in hand back to my apartment. I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The future was still uncertain. I still needed to find a job to figure out my new identity, but for the first time, I was excited about the possibilities at my door. Maya kissed me again, soft and sweet. Good night. Julia, she said, sweet dreams. As I watched her walk away, I touched my lips, still tingling from her kiss. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew one thing for certain: my life would never be the same, and I couldn't wait to see where this new chapter would lead. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of discovery, both of myself and of the thrilling new relationship blooming between Maya and me. Each day brought new experiences, new sensations, and a growing certainty that this was where I was meant to be. But as with any major life change, there were storms brewing on the horizon. The first drops fell on a crisp Monday morning when I received a call from a prospective employer, Miss Thompson, the voice on the other end said, we're impressed with your credentials. We'd like to offer you a position as our new head of digital archives. I should have been elated. It was a prestigious position, a chance to continue my career in a new direction. But as I listened to the details, a knot formed in my stomach. Of course, we have a strict code of conduct, the man continued. We pride ourselves on maintaining a professional image. The subtext was clear. They'd done their research, probably stumbled across some photos of Maya and me that had made their way onto social media. My personal life was under scrutiny. I'll need some time to consider the offer. I managed to say, my voice tight after hanging up. I sat on my couch, head in my hands. This was the reality I'd been avoiding: the fact that my new life, my relationship with Maya, might have consequences I hadn't anticipated. As if summoned by my distress, my phone buzzed with a text from Maya. Surprise lunch date. I'm in your area. 20 minutes later, we were seated in a small bistro, Maya's concerned eyes searching my face. Okay, spill, she said. What's got you looking like someone stole your favorite book? I took a deep breath and explained about the job offer and the implied conditions. Ma's expression darkened as I spoke. That's, she said, her voice low and angry. They can't discriminate against you for who you love. They're not explicitly, I sighed, but it's clear they want someone conventional. Maya reached across the table, taking my hand. Julia, you are extraordinary. Any place that can't see, that doesn't deserve you. Her words warmed me, but the reality of our situation still weighed heavily. It's not just about the job, Maya. This is going to keep happening. My family, my old friends, they're not all going to understand. As if on cue, my phone buzzed again. It was my sister, Catherine. Jules, is it true? Mom saw some pictures online. Are you dating a woman? I felt the blood drain from my face. Maya squeezed my hand, grounding me. You don't have to answer now, she said softly. But I knew I couldn't hide anymore. With trembling fingers, I typed out a response. Yes, it's true. Her name is Maya. She makes me happy. The reply came almost instantly. I don't understand. What about Tom? What about the life you had? I could feel tears pricking at my eyes as I read the message aloud to Maya. She moved to my side of the booth, wrapping an arm around me. It's okay, She murmured, "You don't owe anyone an explanation for your happiness," but even as I leaned into her embrace, I couldn't shake the feeling that my world was shifting once again, and not everyone in my life was ready to shift with it. The next few days were a blur of uncomfortable conversations and tense silences. My parents still, reeling from my divorce, couldn't wrap their heads around this new development. Old colleagues whispered behind my back, even some friends I thought I could count on expressed their concerns through it all. Maya was my rock. She held me when I cried, made me laugh when I felt like I was drowning, and never once made me feel like I was a burden. One evening, as we curled up on my couch watching an old movie, Maya turned to me with a serious expression. "Julia," she said, her voice soft but firm, "I need you to know something. I'm in this for the long haul. Whatever happens, whatever people say or think, I'm here. You're not alone." I looked at her, this beautiful, passionate woman who had turned my world upside down in the best possible way, and in that moment I knew that no matter what challenges we faced, it was all worth it. "I love you." I said the words, slipping out before I could second guess them. Maya's eyes widened, a slow smile spreading across her face. "I love you too," she whispered, leaning in to kiss me. As our lips met, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. Yes, there were still battles to be fought, prejudices to overcome, but here in Maya's arms, I was home the next morning. I woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. I called the company back and politely declined their offer, explaining that I was looking for an environment that valued diversity and inclusivity. Then, with Maya's encouragement, I decided to take a leap of faith. I'd always harbored a secret dream of opening a bookstore, one that celebrated art and literature in all its forms. With my severance pay from the library and Maya's connections in the art world, it suddenly seemed possible. As we started to plan, sketching out ideas and crunching numbers, I felt the excitement I hadn't experienced in years. This was more than just a new job or a new relationship. It was a chance to create something meaningful, something that reflected who I truly was. But just as things were looking up, life threw another curveball. Our way Maya's phone rang, and from the way her face paled, I knew something was wrong. "It's Lena," she said, her voice shaking. "My ex, she's back in town and she wants to see me." As I watched Maya's internal struggle play out on her face, I realized that our journey was far from over. The storm wasn't past. We were merely in the eye of it, with more challenges looming on the horizon. The news of Maya's ex-girlfriend's return hung over us like a dark cloud. I tried to be supportive, to hide my insecurities, but the thought of this mysterious Lena gnawed at me. Who was she? What did she want? And most importantly, did Maya still have feelings for her? "You should meet her," I said one evening, surprising myself with the words. We were in Maya's studio, surrounded by half-finished canvases and the comforting smell of paint. Maya looked up from her work, her brow furrowed. "Are you sure?" "I don't want you to feel uncomfortable." I forced a smile. "I'm sure she was a part of your life. I want to know all of you, including your past." The next day, we met Lena at a trendy cafe downtown. She was stunning, tall, with flowing red hair and piercing green eyes. As she hugged Maya, I felt a pang of jealousy I wasn't proud of. "So you must be Julia," Lena said, turning to me with a dazzling smile. "Em told me so much about you." The conversation was polite, if a bit strained. Lina spoke about her travels, her art shows in Europe. I found myself shrinking, feeling provincial and boring in comparison. As we were leaving, Lena pulled Maya aside. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but the intensity of their conversation made my stomach churn. That night, as Maya and I lay in bed, I finally voiced my fears. "Do you still have feelings for her?" Maya propped herself up on one elbow, looking at me intently. "Julia, listen to me. What Lena and I had is in the past. You're my present and my future. I love you." Her words soothed me, but a seed of doubt had been planted. It grew over the next few weeks, fed by my own insecurities and the stress of our new ventures. The bookstore was coming along, but it was more work than I'd anticipated. Every day brought new challenges: zoning issues, budget constraints, inventory decisions. Maya was supportive, but I could see the strain it was putting on our relationship. Then came the night of Maya's big art exhibition. It was a crucial show for her career, featuring her most ambitious works yet. I'd been so caught up in the bookstore that I'd barely had time to help her prepare. The gallery was packed, the air buzzing with excitement. Maya looked radiant, her blue streak hair styled elegantly, her dress hugging her curves in all the right places. I felt doughy in comparison, still wearing the clothes I'd thrown on that morning to meet with contractors as Maya made her rounds. Charming critics and potential buyers I found. Myself drifting to the periphery, I watched as she laughed with Lena, who'd shown up looking like she'd stepped off a runway. They moved together with an easy familiarity that made my chest ache. "You must be so proud," a voice beside me said. I turned to see an older woman admiring one of Maya's paintings. "I am," I said, forcing a smile. "She's incredibly talented." The woman nodded. "It's wonderful to see young artists supporting each other. Are you also in the arts?" I felt my face flush. "No, I am opening a bookstore." "Oh, how lovely," she said, but I could hear the dismissal in her tone as she moved away. I felt more out of place than ever later that night as we were cleaning up. Maya finally noticed my mood. "Hey, what's wrong? Aren't you excited the show was a huge success?" I tried to muster some enthusiasm, but the words came out bitter. "Yeah, it was great. You and Lena seem to be having a wonderful time." Maya's face fell. "Julia, don't do this. Lena's just a friend. You know that too." I snapped ears of insecurity bubbling to the surface because from where I was standing, it looked like you fit perfectly into her world, a world I don't belong in. "That's not fair," Maya said, her voice rising. "I've never made you feel like you don't belong. You don't have to," I retorted. "I do a good enough job of that on my own." We argued late into the night, words we'd both regret, flying back and forth. By the time we fell into an uneasy sleep, nothing had been resolved. The next morning, I woke up early, my head pounding. Maya was still asleep, her face troubled, even in repose. I slipped out quietly, needing some air to clear my head. I found myself wandering the streets, eventually ending up at the construction site of our future bookstore. As I stood there, looking at the half-finished interior, I felt a surge of determination. This was my dream, my passion, and I'd be damned if I let my insecurities ruin it, or my relationship with Maya. With renewed purpose, I spent the day throwing myself into work. I made decisions I'd been putting off, solved problems that had seemed insurmountable. By the time evening rolled around, I felt more like myself than I had in weeks. I returned home to find Maya pacing nervously. When she saw me, her face crumpled with relief. "Julia," she breathed, rushing to embrace me. "I was so worried. I'm so sorry about last night. I never meant to make you feel." I cut her off with a kiss, pouring all my love and apology into it. When we finally broke apart, I rested my forehead against hers. "I'm sorry too," I whispered. "I let my fears get the best of me, but I'm done with that. I love you, Maya, and I'm not letting anything come between us. Not Lena, not my insecurities, nothing." Maya's smile was watery but genuine. "I love you too. So much, and I'm so proud of you, of us, of everything we're building together." As we held each other, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. There would be more challenges ahead, I knew, but standing there in Maya's arms, I felt ready to face them all. Little did I know the biggest test of our relationship was just around the corner, waiting to blindside us when we least expected it. As winter descended upon Indianapolis, bringing with it a blanket of snow and holiday cheer, Maya and I found ourselves swept up in the magic of our first Christmas together. The city was transformed into a winter wonderland, streets lined with twinkling lights and shop windows adorned with festive displays. "Come on, Slowpoke," Maya called out, her breath visible in the crisp air as she tugged me along the bustling Christmas market. Her cheeks were flushed with excitement, blue hair peeking out from under a knitted beanie I'd gifted her. I laughed, allowing myself to be pulled through the crowd. "I'm coming. I'm Coming, not all of us have your boundless energy. We weave through stalls, selling everything from handcrafted ornaments to steaming cups of mulled wine. The air was thick with the scent of cinnamon and pine, tingling with the sound of carols and laughter as we stopped to admire a display of intricate glass snowflakes. I felt Maya's arms slip around my waist. "Hey," she said softly, her eyes twinkling in the fairy lights. "I'm really glad we're doing this." I leaned into her embrace, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with my thick coat. "Me too," I murmured, pressing a kiss to her cold, reeded nose. We spent hours exploring the market, sipping hot chocolate, and debating over which ornaments to buy for our first Christmas tree together. As the evening wore on and the crowd began to thin, Maya led me to a quiet corner near an old carousel. "Close your eyes," she instructed, a mischievous grin playing on her lips. I obliged, feeling a mix of curiosity and anticipation. I heard the rustle of paper, then felt something small and box-shaped being pressed into my hands. "Okay, open them." I blinked my eyes open to find a beautifully wrapped package in my palms. With trembling fingers, I carefully undid the ribbon and peeled back the paper. Inside was a small velvet box. My heart began to race as I slowly opened it. Nestled within was a delicate silver key on a chain. I looked up at Maya, questions in my eyes. "It's a key to my studio," she explained, her voice soft into my heart. "I know. It's not much, but I wanted you to know that you have a place in every part of my life." Julia, always tears pricked at my eyes as I pulled her in for a deep, passionate kiss around us. The world seemed to fade away, leaving just the two of us in our own little bubble of happiness. That night, as we stumbled back to my apartment, giddy with love and maybe a little too much mulled wine, I felt a sense of completion I'd never experienced before. We fell into bed, a tangle of limbs and laughter, our kisses growing heated. What followed was a night of tender exploration and passionate discovery. We made love with intensity that left us both breathless, our bodies moving together as if they'd always been meant to. In the afterglow, as we lay intertwined, I marveled at how far we'd come, how much we'd overcome. The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Maya humming in the kitchen. I padded out wrapped in a blanket to find her making pancakes. "Good morning, beautiful," she said, flipping a pancake with flare sleep. "Well," I wrapped my arms around her from behind, pressing a kiss to her shoulder. "Better than ever," I murmured as we sat down to breakfast. I couldn't help but think about how domestic this all felt. "How right, move in with me," I blurted out. Suddenly, Ma's fork clattered to her plate. When I took a deep breath, suddenly nervous, but certain. "Move in with me, or I'll move in with you." "I don't care. I want to wake up to this every morning." A slow smile spread across Maya's face. "Julia Thompson, are you saying you want to U-Haul with me?" I laughed, remembering the less lesbian stereotype she'd once joked about. "I guess I am. What do you say?" Her answer came in the form of a syrup sweet kiss that left me dizzy with happiness. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of packing boxes, rearranging furniture, and blending our lives in ways both big and small. We decided to take the plunge and find a new place together, something that could be truly ours. It wasn't all smooth sailing. Of course, we bickered over whose art would go where, debated the merits of my organized filing system versus Maya's more creative approach to storage. But even in our disagreements, there was an underlying current of joy of rightness. As Christmas approached, our new home began to take shape. My books mingled with Maya's canvases, her colorful throw pillows softening my more austere furniture. We spent evenings decorating our tree, Maya insisting on hanging the most outrageous ornaments in prominent positions, while I tried to maintain some semblance of color coordination. On Christmas Eve, we hosted a small gathering of friends. As I watched Maya charming everyone with her stories, her hand never far from mine, I felt a surge of pride and love so strong it almost overwhelmed me. Later that night, as we lay in bed, the room bathed in the soft glow of Christmas lights, Maya propped herself up on one elbow, looking at me intently. "What I asked a suddenly self-conscious nothing she said, tracing a finger along my jawline. I never thought I could be this happy. You've changed my life, Julia. I pulled her down for a kiss, trying to pour all my emotions into it. You've changed mine too. I whispered against her lips as we drifted off to sleep, tangled in each other's arms. I felt a sense of peace and contentment I'd never known before, whatever challenges the future held. I knew we'd face them together. Little did I know the new year would bring with it a test that would shake the very foundations of the life we built. The new year dawned bright and full of promise. Maya and I had settled into our new home, finding a rhythm in our shared life that felt both exciting and comfortable. The bookstore was coming along nicely with an opening date set for early spring. Everything seemed to be falling into place. Then came the email that would change everything. I was at my laptop finalizing some details for the store's inventory system when the notification popped up. The sender name made my heart skip a beat. Dr. Elaine Harper, head of library sciences at Oxford University. With trembling fingers, I opened the message. As I read, I felt the floor drop out from under me. Dear Miss Thompson, it began. We were impressed by your work at the Indianapolis Central Library and your innovative ideas for digital archiving. We would like to offer you a position as a visiting lecturer for the upcoming academic year. I read the email 3 times, my mind reeling. Oxford, one of the most prestigious universities in the world. It was an incredible opportunity, a chance to work with world-class scholars and shape the future of library science. But it was in England for a year, away from the bookstore, away from Maya. I was still staring at the screen when Maya came home, her arms full of groceries. Hey babe, I got those weird British biscuits you like. Thought we could have a proper tea time tonight. She called out cheerfully when I didn't respond. She poked her head into the study. Julia, you okay? I looked at her, my emotions a tangled mess. I got a job offer from Oxford. Maya's eyes widened. Oxford as in England, Oxford holy. Julia, that's amazing. She rushed over, pulling me into a tight hug, but as she felt my stiff posture, she pulled back, searching my face. Wait, why aren't you excited? This is huge. I swallowed hard. It's for a year, Maya, in England. I'd have to leave everything. The implication hung heavy in the air between us. Maya's face cycled through a range of emotions: pride, excitement, confusion, and finally a flicker of fear. Oh, she said softly. I see the next few weeks were tense. We tried to discuss it rationally, weighing pros and cons, but our conversations often devolved into arguments. It's the opportunity of a lifetime, Julia, Maya would say, her voice strained with forced enthusiasm. You can't pass this up. But what about us? I'd counter. What about the bookstore? Everything we've built here. We go around in circles, neither of us willing to voice our deepest fears. I was terrified of leaving, of losing the life we'd created together. And I could see the fear in Maya's eyes, too, fear of being left behind, of not being enough to make me stay. As the deadline to accept the offer loomed closer, the tension between us grew. We snapped at each other over little things, the strain of the unresolved ISS issues seeping into every aspect of our relationship. One night, after a particularly heated argument, Maya stormed out of the apartment. I sat on the couch, my head in my hands, feeling more lost than ever. That's when my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Tom, my ex-husband. Heard about the Oxford offer. Congratulations. Can we meet for coffee? I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen. Tom and I hadn't spoken much since the divorce, and even less since I'd started dating Maya, but in that moment, I needed someone to talk to who wasn't emotionally invested in my decision. The next day, I found myself sitting across from Tom in a quiet cafe. He looked good, happier than I remembered seeing him in the later years of our marriage. So he said, after we'd exchanged awkward pleasantries, Oxford, huh? That's quite something. I nodded absently, stirring my coffee. Yeah, it is. I don't know what to do, Tom. He looked at me thoughtfully. You know, Julia, when we were married, I always felt like you were holding back, like there was a part of you that was waiting for something. I think this might be it. His words hit me like a punch to the gut. Was he right? Had I always been waiting for an opportunity like this? But what about Maya? I asked, voicing the fear that had been gnawing at me. What if I lose her? Tom's smile was kind of a little sad. If she loves you, really loves you, she support your dreams, and if it's meant to be, you'll find a way to make it work. As I left the cafe, my mind was whirling. Tom's perspective had shifted something in me, making me see the situation in a new light. I found Maya in her studio working on a new piece. When she saw me, she put down her brush, her posture wary. I'm going to accept the offer. I said, my voice steady despite the pounding of my heart. Ma's face fell, but she nodded. I thought you might. It's the right decision, Julia. You deserve this. I crossed the room, taking her paint stained hands in mine. But I'm not going without you. Her eyes widened in surprise. Would I love you? Maya, and I want you with me on this adventure. We can make it work. You can paint anywhere, right? And it's only for a year. We can sublet the apartment. Put the bookstore opening on hold. Please say you'll come with me. Tears wet up in Maya's eyes for a moment. I was terrified she'd say no, but then she pulled me into a fierce kiss, her lips tasting of salt and paint. Yes, she whispered against my mouth. Yes, I'll come with you. The next few months were a whirlwind of preparation. We had to arrange visas, find a place to live in Oxford, figure out what to do with our apartment and the half-finished bookstore. It was stressful and exciting and equal. Measure the night before our flight. As we lay in beds, surrounded by half-packed suitcases, Maya turned to me. Are you scared? She asked softly. I thought about it for a moment, a little, I admitted, but mostly I'm excited as long as we're together. Feel like we can handle anything. Maya snuggled closer, her head resting on my chest. Me too, she murmured as I drifted off to sleep. I felt a sense of anticipation bubbling up inside me. We were about to embark on the biggest adventure of our lives. And while I didn't know what challenges lay ahead, I knew that with Maya by my side, I was ready to face them all. Little dead. I know our journey was far from over. The year in Oxford would test us in ways we never could have imagined, pushing our love to its limits and forcing us to confront truths about ourselves and our relationship that we'd never dared to face before. Our year in Oxford flew by in a whirlwind of ancient spires, musty libraries, and rain-soaked cobblestone streets. I threw myself into my work, relishing the challenge of lecturing to bright-eyed students and collaborating with world-renowned scholars. Maya, true to her adaptable nature, found inspiration in the city's rich history and vibrant art scene. But as the months wore on, cracks began to appear in our seemingly perfect life. The long hours I spent at the university left Maya feeling isolated. Her art, once so vibrant and full of life, took on darker tones. We argued more frequently over little things that had never bothered us before. One rainy evening, as I rushed home from a late faculty meeting, I found Maya sitting in the dark of our small flat, surrounded by half-finished canvases. Maya, I called out, flicking on the lights. What's wrong? She looked up at me, her eyes red-rimmed. I can't do this anymore, Julia, my heart. Jacques, what do you mean this? She gestured around vaguely as here. I'm losing myself, and I think you're losing me too. We talked long into the night, laying bare all the fears and resentments we'd been harboring. Maya felt like she was living in my shadow, always the plus one at academic functions. I realized I'd been so caught up in my work that I'd neglected our relationship. By morning, we'd made a decision. Maya would return to Indianapolis early to prepare for her upcoming gallery show and to start work on the bookstore. I would finish out the academic year and join her in a few months. It was a bittersweet parting at Hio. As I watched Maya disappear through security, I felt a mixture of belief and dread. We needed this time apart. I told myself it would make us stronger. The remaining months in Oxford were a blur of lectures, research, and loneliness. Maya and I video chatted daily, but there was a distance between us that hadn't existed before I threw myself into my work, trying to ignore the nagging feeling that something fundamental had shifted in our relationship. Finally, the day came for my return to Indianapolis. As the plane touched down, my stomach was in knots. Would things be the same between us had? Too much change. Maya was waiting for me at the arrivals gate, a bouquet of wildflowers in her hand when our eyes met. I felt a rush of emotion so strong it nearly knocked me off my feet. "Welcome home," she said, softly pulling me into a tight embrace. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. As we threw ourselves into preparing for the bookstore's grand opening, it felt good to be working. Side by side again, our complementary skills, creating something beautiful together the night before. The opening, we stood in the middle of the store, surrounded by shelves of books and the faint smell of fresh paint. "We did it," I breathed, looking around in wonder. Maya squeezed my hand. "We did it. It's perfect," as we locked up and headed home hand in hand. I felt a sense of rightness settle over me. This was where we belonged. This was our dream. The bookstore's opening day dawned bright and clear, a line of curious customers stretched down the block, drawn in by Maya's eye-catching window displays and the promise of a unique book-buying experience. As I cut the ribbon and welcomed our first customers, I caught Maya's eye across the room. She was beaming her blue streak hair, catching the sunlight streaming through the windows. In that moment, I felt a surge of love so strong it almost overwhelmed me. The day passed in a blur of excited chatter, the rustle of pages, and the cheerful ding of the cash register as the last customer left. And we finally flipped the open sign to closed. Maya pulled me into a tight hug. "We did it, babe," she whispered. "It's everything we dreamed of." And more. I pulled back slightly, looking into her eyes. "Maya." But before I could finish, the door chimed. We both turned, surprised to see a customer had slipped. And just before closing, "I'm sorry," a familiar voice said. "I know you're closing, but I just had to see it for myself." My breath caught in my throat as I recognized the figure standing in the doorway. Lena. Maya's voice was a mix of surprise and something else I couldn't quite identify. Lena stepped further into the store, her green eyes taking in every detail. "This place is amazing," she said softly. "I always knew you two would do great things together." There was an awkward silence as we all stood there, the air thick with unspoken words and lingering emotions. "I'm in town for a few days," Lena continued, her eyes never leaving Maya's face. "I was hoping we could catch up for old time's sake." I felt Maya stiffen beside me, her hand tightening on mine. I don't know if that's a good idea," she said hesitantly. Lena's smile faltered slightly. "Of course. I understand it was presumptuous of me to just show up like this. I'll go," as she turned to leave. I saw something flicker across Maya's face, regret, longing before I could pro it. Maya spoke up. "Wait," she called out. Maybe we could all have dinner together tomorrow night." Lena's face lit up. "I'd love that." As we watched her leave, I turned to Maya, a question in my eyes. She gave me a reassuring smile, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted ever so slightly that night. As we lay in bed, I couldn't stop my mind from racing. The bookstore was a success, our dream realized, but as I looked at Maya's sleeping form beside me, I couldn't help but wonder, was it enough? Had our time apart changed us more than we realized? As I drifted off to sleep, one thought kept circling in my mind. Tomorrow's dinner would either reaffirm our love or expose the cracks that had been forming since Oxford. Either way, I had a feeling our story was far from over.